There are places on the map where geography becomes destiny, narrow waterways and choke points through which the modern world quietly moves. The Red Sea is one of them. It is a corridor that connects Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, and a place where local tensions can ripple across continents. Today, this region is facing one of its most delicate moments in decades, a crisis that challenges shipping routes, global supply chains, and the balance of power in an area already filled with competing interests. To understand why it matters, we need to look at what is happening now and consider what might come next. Over the past months, the Red Sea has become one of the most disrupted maritime routes in the world. Shipping companies have diverted thousands of vessels away from the Suez Canal and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, two of the most important passages for global trade. Security incidents, attacks on commercial vessels, and political tensions have fueled uncertainty. Insurance premiums have increased, transit times have lengthened by up to 2 weeks for ships forced to sail around Africa, and freight costs have surged across multiple sectors. This is not a local issue. The Red Sea handles roughly 12% of global trade and nearly 30% of global container traffic, affecting everything from energy markets to consumer goods, manufacturing parts, and food imports. In a world built on efficiency and just-in-time movement, the disruption of a single choke point becomes a global story. The Red Sea has always been a strategic corridor. For centuries, it linked the Mediterranean with Indian Ocean trade routes, but its modern importance emerged in 1869 with the opening of the Suez Canal. That narrow channel turned the Red Sea into the main bridge between Europe and Asia, cutting shipping times by thousands of kilometers. In the 20th century, the region became central to the export of Middle Eastern oil and to maritime competition among global powers. Control over the sea lanes around Yemen, Djibouti, Eritrea, and Egypt often reflected wider geopolitical rivalries. More recently, foreign militaries expanded their presence in the region. China built its first overseas naval base in Djibouti, joining the United States, France, Japan, and others already operating there. The Bab el-Mandeb, barely 30 kilometers wide, became a transit point monitored by major navies. The current crisis is not new in its nature, but it is new in its scale and global impact. The key actors each navigate this crisis with distinct interests. Global shipping companies want stability and predictable routes. Their primary concern is safety, damaged vessels, delays, and rising insurance costs. They need a secure Red Sea corridor but cannot control regional politics, making their decisions dependent on official security assessments and alliances. For Egypt, the Suez Canal is one of its most important sources of revenue. When ships avoid it, the country loses millions of dollars each day. Egypt needs stability for both economic and political reasons, yet it cannot secure the entire Red Sea on its own. Yemen-based armed actors, although varied in their internal dynamics, often use the Red Sea to project influence and pressure international stakeholders. Their goal is political leverage, domestic legitimacy, or regional bargaining power. Their capabilities are limited, but their geographic position gives them disproportionate impact. Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states rely on the Red Sea for energy exports and maritime security. They want predictable trade routes and reduce tensions near their shores, but must balance regional strategies with broader diplomatic interests, including relations with the United States, China, and Yemen. The United States and its European partners seek freedom of navigation and stability in global trade. The crisis challenges their role as security providers along key maritime routes. Their limitation is clear. They cannot protect every vessel at all times, and escalation risks complicate diplomacy in an already sensitive region. China and other Asian export economies rely heavily on the Red Sea for shipments to Europe. They want stability, continued access, and predictability. China also sees an opportunity to expand its diplomatic influence, supported by its naval presence in Djibouti, though it must balance economic interests with long-standing principles of non-interference. The Red Sea is not just a body of water, it is a strategic artery for the global economy. The Suez Canal shortens the journey between Europe and Asia by thousands of kilometers, and its disruption forces ships to reroute around the Cape of Good Hope, adding 10 to 14 days of transit. The region carries significant volumes of oil and liquefied natural gas, and any instability can affect global energy prices, especially in Europe and Asia. Electronics, machinery, textiles, automotive parts, and agricultural goods all move through this corridor, meaning delays create ripple effects across factories and markets worldwide. Multiple powers operate bases or naval missions in this area, creating both cooperation and competition. The crisis tests their ability to coordinate or disagree on maritime security. And for regional states, the economic consequences are direct. Egypt and Yemen depend heavily on Red Sea trade, and prolonged disruptions threaten revenues, alliances, and domestic stability. The strategic importance of this crisis lies not only in rerouted ships, but in how the choices of each actor reshape the balance of power. Several futures are possible. One potential outcome is the gradual stabilization of the maritime corridor. Sustained international naval cooperation could reduce attacks and threats, restoring confidence among shipping companies and gradually bringing traffic back to the Suez route. This requires diplomatic de-escalation and coordinated patrols, feasible but dependent on political agreement across diverse actors. Another scenario is a long-term diversion of global trade. If insecurity persists, shipping lines may shift part of their traffic around Africa permanently, reshaping fuel markets, altering port logistics, and increasing the structural costs of global trade. Some southern African ports might benefit, while Egypt would face significant pressure. This becomes more likely if tensions remain unpredictable. A third scenario ties Red Sea security to broader negotiations in Yemen. Improved conditions on land could reduce maritime risks, but this depends on complex negotiations involving regional powers and internal factions. While less probable, it would be strategically significant. Another possible development is heightened great power competition. China may expand its naval role, while the United States and Europe could reinforce their missions. More actors could bring more security or more rivalry. The outcome depends on whether these powers coordinate or compete. Some changes may come through technology. Shipping companies might invest in alternative logistics, rail links across Eurasia, expanded pipelines, or larger vessels optimized for longer routes. These adjustments would reshape trade patterns over time and influence future infrastructure decisions. Across all scenarios, one constant remains. The Red Sea will continue to be a critical part of the global economy. But how it functions and who shapes it is now more open to change than at any point in recent decades. The Red Sea has always been a narrow passage with an outsized impact. Today's crisis reminds us that global trade does not move through abstract lines on a map. It moves through real places shaped by politics, geography, and power. When a choke point is disrupted, the entire system feels it. And when the system adapts, it often redraws the landscape of global commerce. In international affairs, nothing shifts overnight, but small changes along strategic corridors can redefine entire regions. Understanding the Red Sea is understanding how the world connects and how those connections are never guaranteed. The geography of trade continues to shape the 21st century, and the map of the Red Sea remains at the center of that story.